The United States Army once commissioned a chocolate bar with a single requirement. It had to taste as bad as possible. 3 billion of them were produced. 12 brands. 12 decisions that shaped what chocolate became. Stay until the end. There's a question only people who watched this will be able to answer.
American and European chocolate are made from the same ingredients. They taste completely different. The gap traces back to a single chemical decision made in 1905, and neither side has changed it since. Milt and Hershey needed to transport fresh milk from Pennsylvania farms to his factory without refrigeration over the slow roads of the early 20th century. The milk soured in transit. The solution was unconventional. The milk was allowed to sour deliberately, right on the farm, in a controlled way, up to a specific point. Then the process was stopped. Soured milk could not spoil further. It stabilized. It worked, but during souring, the milk released butyric acid, the same compound responsible for the smell of rancid butter and Parmesan. In small quantities, it is harmless, but it changes the flavor permanently. Hershey standardized the process. Generation after generation of Americans grew up with that taste. It became the reference point, what chocolate was supposed to taste like. European chocolatiers use fresh milk solids processed differently. When they taste Hershey's, the butyric acid reads as spoilage. When Americans taste European chocolate, it reads as flat. Europe calls it a defect. America calls it chocolate.
During the Second World War, the British government classified chocolate as a strategic material, not a treat, not a luxury, a resource with measurable impact on combat effectiveness. The Cadbury factory in Bourneville shifted to military contracts. The civilian ration fell to 8 ounces, 227 grams per person per month, less than 2 standard bars, and only when chocolate was actually available. Ration coupons gave the right to buy, not a guarantee that the shelves were stocked. The front came first. Field commanders had documented what happened to soldiers without it. Morale deteriorated in ways that affected decisions, discipline, and endurance. Chocolate was one of the few high-calorie portable items that reliably reversed that decline. The War Office structured the supply chain accordingly. A Cadbury bar in a soldier's ration was not a reward, it was a strategic calculation. In 1962, British company Roundtrees launched a chocolate that came with a schedule. After 8, thin mint wafers in dark chocolate was positioned as a confection it was socially acceptable to eat only after 8 in the evening, not after dinner, after 8 specifically. This was not a product description, it was a social instruction. The packaging mimicked a formal dinner invitation. The typeface evoked the menus of expensive restaurants. The chocolate was sold not as a sweet, but as a marker of a particular way of life. The strategy worked more precisely than the recipe. After 8 became the standard close to dinner parties across Britain, not because it tasted better than its competitors, but because it had a specific moment on the table. The format and base recipe have not changed since 1962. Neither has the schedule. In Japan, Kit Kat is not sold as chocolate. It is sold as a talisman. The name sounds close to Kitto Katsu, roughly, you will surely win. In the late 90s, students began giving each other bars before university entrance exams, not as a snack, as a good luck wish in a form you could hold in your hands. The company did not launch this tradition. It emerged organically, through a phonetic coincidence no one had planned. Nestle Japan noticed the growing demand and only then began to systematize it. That led to regional flavors tied to specific prefectures: sake from Niigata, strawberry from Tochigi, matcha from Kyoto. Today there are more than 400, each developed as a standalone product with local suppliers and limited production runs. Everywhere else in the world, Kit Kat is a chocolate wafer bar. In Japan, it is the only mass-market bar people buy not to eat immediately, but to give at the right moment. The corporation did not invent the culture, it inserted itself into it and scaled it to hundreds of flavors.
Bounty is sold in more than 100 countries. In the United States, it barely exists. Rowntree's launched the bar in 1951. Coconut in milk chocolate quickly became one of the best-selling bars in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. In the United Kingdom, it has held a top 5 position for several decades. In the United States, attempts at mass distribution were made several times. Each time, the bar quietly disappeared from shelves. Not because of quality, not because of price. Coconut in chocolate simply never established itself as a mainstream flavor there. The American market chose peanuts, caramel, and nougat, Snickers, Twix, Reese's. This is a rare case of a single product holding category leadership on one continent while being virtually absent on another. Not because of marketing, because two markets developed different baseline tastes at the same time independently of each other. The Atlantic Ocean does not divide countries, it divides palates.
In 2016, Mondelez changed the shape of Toblerone. Not the taste, not the packaging, the distance between the peaks. The manufacturer widened the gaps between the triangular sections on the British market. A 400-gram bar, 14 ounces, was reduced to 360 grams, 12.5 ounces, at the same length. The official reason was rising ingredient costs. The actual result was less chocolate in the same wrapper. The reaction was immediate. British tabloids ran it on their front pages. Social media filled with side-by-side comparisons of old and new shapes. The issue was raised in parliamentary discussions on consumer protection. Mondelez partially reversed course. In 2018, the original format returned to the British market as a separate product line under the name Original. The reduced version remained in parallel. The triangle has existed since 1908. A century passed without anyone touching it. A 10% reduction took 2 years to resolve.
In 1901, every chocolate bar on European shelves was brown or red. Milka launched in lilac. This was not an accident and not a rebrand. The lilac color was chosen deliberately as a violation of the category's visual code. In a market where every competitor looked the same, an unfamiliar color created the one thing money cannot buy at launch: instant recognition. The strategy worked. Lilac became so consistently associated with Milka that the company registered it as a trademark in several European countries. It is one of the few cases in the food industry where a color itself received legal protection. The classic logo with the cow was established in the 1970s, 7 decades after launch. It became the symbol of the brand. But the work of owning the shelf was done by the color long before the cow entered the picture. Brown was the norm. Lilac became the rule.
Kinder is Italian chocolate with a German name. That was not a coincidence. In 1968, Michele Ferrero was launching a new product for the European market. Italy, in the 60s, was associated with fashion, design, and sports cars, not with children's nutrition, not with rigorous quality standards. Germany was associated with exactly those things. Ferrero chose the German word Kinder, children, as the brand name, not because the product was developed in Germany, but because a German name sold to mothers in the supermarket aisle precisely what they needed: a sense of reliability and control over what their child was eating. The packaging reinforced this code. The slogan on the wrapper was literal: plus milk, minus cocoa. The chocolate was positioned not as a sweet, but as a dairy product with reduced cocoa content. The face on the packaging is a child. The customer standing in the aisle is a mother. The brand was built for the second one.
The hazelnut inside Ferrero Rocher was not a flavor decision. It was a forced substitution. In 1946, Pietro Ferrero was working in Alba, a small town in Piedmont where hazelnuts grew in abundance. Cocoa after the war was expensive and scarce.
Ferrero mixed chocolate with ground hazelnuts to stretch a costly ingredient with a cheap one. The result was gianduja, a paste that would later become the foundation of Nutella. 36 years later, his son Michele took the same principle and built Ferrero Rocher, a whole nut at the center, a wafer shell, a layer of gianduja, a chocolate coating rolled in crushed hazelnut, gold foil. A product that began as a way to save on cocoa became the symbol of a premium gift in 90 countries. Ferrero Rocher boxes are given at Christmas, at weddings, and at business meetings as a visual signal of quality and attention. Scarcity created the recipe. The recipe created the luxury.
A chocolate sphere must crack on the bite, but not shatter. It must hold its shape until the last possible moment and release the filling at exactly the right instant. That is an engineering problem, not a culinary one. Lindt worked on this mechanics for several years. The critical variable is the thickness of the outer shell. Too thin, the sphere deforms in transport. Too thick, it does not break cleanly on the bite, it crumbles unevenly. The working range is measured in tenths of a millimeter. The second variable is the temperature of the filling. The chocolate filling inside must remain soft enough to create a melting effect, but not so liquid that it leaks when the shell is compromised during packaging. The production line controls both variables simultaneously on every single sphere. Lindor launched in 1967 as a handmade experiment. Mass production only became possible after Lindt solved the structural stability of the shell through technical means. The filling melts in a second. The solution that makes that possible took years to develop. Snickers is named after a horse, not a city, not a founder, not an ingredient. The Mars family's favorite mare. Franklin Mars launched the bar in 1930. The family named it after Snickers, a horse that lived on their family farm. For the American market, the name stuck immediately and remained unchanged for 90 years. For the British market, it did not. In the United Kingdom, the bar was sold under the name Marathon from 1967. The name referenced endurance and energy, a logical association for a product positioned as a filling snack. In 1990, Mars carried out a global brand unification. Marathon disappeared. Snickers took its place on British shelves. A generation of consumers who had grown up with Marathon was being asked to relearn a name while the filling, the wrapper, and the taste stayed identical. The horse has been gone for a long time. Its name sells in 170 countries. In 1991, Mars renamed Rader to Twix. For 24 years, Germans had known this bar under one name. Now they were being offered another. The company understood this would be unwelcome. The marketing team released a campaign built on direct acknowledgement. Rader heißt jetzt Twix, sonst ändert sich nix. In English, Rader is now called Twix. Everything else stays the same. The phrase landed more precisely than planned. Germans accepted the new name, but they did not forget the line. Today, it is used to describe any situation where something has been renamed without actually changing. A new law with a different title, a corporate restructuring with no real shift, a politician with a new position and the same methods. The bar has been called Twix for decades. The slogan that said nothing had changed the German language. In 1937, the United States Army gave chocolate manufacturers a single specification. The bar had to withstand 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit, deliver 600 calories, and taste slightly better than a boiled potato. Captain Paul Logan did not want soldiers to enjoy it. He wanted them to eat it only when there was nothing else. The Hershey laboratory delivered. The D ration, a dense wax-like brick, held up in the heat, survived desert campaigns and resisted the bite without a knife. Workers pressed each bar by hand. The mixture was too thick for any existing machine. Over the course of the Second World War, more than 3 billion units were produced. Soldiers called it Hitler's secret weapon. They discarded it every time any other food became available. The engineers solved the physics. Human taste rejected the solution.
So here is the question, and only people who actually watch this video will know the answer. Snickers is named after something specific. Not a city, not a founder, not an ingredient. What exactly? And what was it? Drop your answer in the comments.